Today we're going to take a look at an engine. A customer called and said that the engine was low on power. When our tech got out there, the reason the engine was low on power is it had a dead miss in it. So the goal of today's video is to help you to see quickly how we determined what was the primary cause or the root cause of what you're going to see in these coming slides. Let's take a look. We got to the machine, they hooked up Insight, found out it was number 6 that was missing by doing a cutout. He pulled the valve cover expecting to be changing a bad injector, and here's what he saw. You can see that push tube is out of place, and that is on the intake rocker arm. So now we've got to see how far we have to go into this. So we pull the push tubes, and as you can see, one is bent in an S shape, and that's a problem. Here you can see the rocker arms and related pieces laying out. Nothing's broken, nothing's missing. So our problem's a little bit farther down the line. We've got to go a little deeper into the engine. We pull the injector out expecting to see the end of it smashed, because usually when a push tube's bent, something happened down in the cylinder and the valve got whacked when the push tube was holding it open, and that's what caused the push tube to bend. And that still could be the case, but the injector, if there was material flying around in the cylinder, the injector never got hit. It looked just like it came out of the box, short of cold firing. Cold firing or no firing, I say that because the end of the injector where it's all black is all wet and sticky. And if the engine's running properly, that's very dry and light brown. Fortunately, at this point, we have no recourse but to pull the head. And this is a picture of what we actually saw when the head was lifted off. And as you can see, it has been running and misfiring for a while. How do we know that? There's a few reasons. One is there's fuel in the piston bowl. It looks like oil, but it's really diesel fuel, unburned, because there was no heat for ignition. And you see how you can read on top of the piston where it says front and 6108. Well, you can read that because all the carbon's been washed off the piston by the fuel. So we know that it was run for a bit of time with the cylinder not firing correctly. This wasn't 5 or 10 minutes, probably a day it ran like that. And sometimes in machines, the engine's horsepower isn't really required. So the machine will run a long time before someone complains about it not running correctly. Now we ended up pulling the cylinder kit out because we wanted to check and see if we had broken rings or something going on underneath. We wanted to see if we had a bent rod because if something hits something, I have seen pistons get whacked by something that goes in a cylinder and right back out, and the piston looks okay on top. But while we got this out, I want you to take a look at the piston rings. You see on the top ring the bar that is right in the center of the ring. It's kind of a chrome looking band. That is a perfect wear band, and that is how a good ring should look. And you can't ask for better than that. Now take a look at the second ring down. That's a different type of ring. So the wear band's on the bottom edge of that. And that is absolutely normal too. It's what you want to see when you take an engine apart. Your oil ring, you just have flat face wear across both edges of the expander. So we don't have any scoring on the skirt of the piston. Everything on this piston looks pristine, and it probably could be put right back in once we know the rod's not bent. Looked at the cylinder head. All the valves look good, but number 6 port in the head was wet. All the rest were dry carbon. This one was wet because it wasn't firing. We took a ball peen hammer and we tapped on all the valves to see if they opened and closed. They all opened and closed. None of the valves appeared to be bent. So we had no reason to know what caused this. And we checked with Insight to see if there was engine RPM overspeeds. There was none. There was no abuse, no engine protection. And you just saw that in a previous video where we talked about that. That all looked good. So there was nothing that we could see at this point that told us what caused this. So we have to go a little farther. We pulled all 4 valves out of number 6 hole in the cylinder head and rolled them on a table. None were bent. Then we started looking closer, and right here the intake valve was scored. That's severely scored. So we mic'd the valve and the guide. They were on the tight side. The guide looked like it had some score lines in it. So what we determined happened is actually a combination of lack of lubricity and then just heat. The valve stuck open in the guide due to scoring on the stem and in the guide. And then the push tube started coming out of place, and the cam came up, and it caught the edge of the push tube and it bent it. And then the push tube flopped on out. And then the valve, probably the piston tapped it and went right back in. But after that, because it was never opened again, it just appeared to be no problem. And with the engine running, you got a lot of compression in that cylinder, even though it's not firing. So that just slammed it shut. So that's what it ended up being. And I wanted you to see this because sometimes it looks like nothing's wrong. And you have to look for small little clues like this. Thanks for joining me on Engine Shop Joe. See you next time.